Welcome back. Last week we studied how you can find the simple statement in your subject so that you can lay a foundation that will let you get a clarity and a believability in your likenesses. A foundation not just for your drawings, but an understanding that will take you through your entire career as a foundation for drawing and painting. So I hope the homework went well for you. I hope you found some success with it, but frankly, I hope you had at least a little bit of frustration. It's good not to be too content because we want to have that fight and that drive to improve. So I'm going to do some demonstrations for you this week. I'm going to take it a little further and do a couple more demonstrations, specifically with a female model, someone who looks very different than the model that we worked with last week, so that we can get comfortable and familiar with a wider variety of subjects. And to work up to that, let's make sure that we've properly laid our foundation. So let's review. We looked at last week about the big roadblocks and barriers that stand between you and developing a professional level of artistic ability, putting in the necessary practice, dealing with the extreme time limits that are almost always present when we're working from life, understanding that often your medium is not capable of representing everything you can see with light, and so you've got to learn to deal with that, and the whammy, the killer, the tough one, that our perception literally works against us, the way we tend to interpret our subjects until we learn to do otherwise. And so we looked at how our misperceptions lead us to go in this kind of ridiculous direction instead of looking for how the smaller parts clearly and simply relate to each other and how those smaller parts properly relate to the whole, so that you can come out the other side with something that's not that, but something like this. Okay, so take this as good news, guys, because our subjects, any subject that's worth drawing, is complicated, it's difficult, but thinking in terms of the simplified construction and then adding complexity on top of that, this is the thing that's going to liberate you. So hear that, and that's why we think about this Riley abstraction. Once again, you aren't mindlessly copying these lines because after all they're in the construction. Rather, you're using them where they're appropriate to help you figure out, as we go into value, which will start next week, to prepare you to figure out how those tones of light and shadow wrap around the larger forms. And so this class, week by week, is going through the solutions to those 4 challenges that we started out with. We get over the hump by learning rock-solid construction drawing. So our decisions are constantly being driven by what to emphasize and what to edit out to create that clarity and to create that artistry. So let's go ahead and give you your homework assignment now so that you'll have the opportunity to be thinking about it during the demonstration, which is coming right up. So the homework is to do exactly the same thing as last week. It's to continue to do construction drawings that emphasize the clarity and the three-dimensional nature of the head. And because I haven't had the opportunity to see your work yet at the time of this recording, let me give you a couple of cautions about what I typically see as the first homework assignments come in and we move to the next. Because this is a little bit different, possibly, than the way that some people are used to working, if it doesn't come out quite right, and if they don't feel like their drawings are looking quite the way they want them to or they should, they often fall back on old habits. Remember, we're trying to break away and improve on what you already do. You already do what you already do. And you're in this class because you want to move on from there. So when the drawings aren't working out quite right because we're in the beginning of a new learning curve, I see, for instance, students doing all kinds of wavy, organic, expressive lines. Well, personally, I love organic, expressive lines, but not at the expense of the clarity of the form and the structure. When you use them like that, they work against you instead of helping you. In fact, it's become a bit of a pet peeve where I frequently see students who aren't quite sure what to do, so they just get kind of speed their arm around and do these kind of vaguely artistic looking expressive lines. That is not what we're doing. Sure, put several lines down to try and find the right structure. But then, once you've gone through that process, I want your final drawing to commit to which line is the correct one. If you don't pin down a final line for each stroke, you haven't completed the homework assignment. The other thing is students start falling into light and shadow. They're kind of used to doing that. The drawing doesn't quite look right to them, and so they start forcing light and shadow into it early out of desperation. Please don't do that. Give yourself the luxury of not having to worry about that yet. Simple construction drawing. Do yourself that favor for your homework.